Hello, and welcome to this special author interview for the SFF Spotlight event. It's happening on September 29th in Shrewsbury at the Nerdy Cafe. I'm your host, Frasier Armitage, part-time robot, full-time nerd, author of Time's Ellipse and New Yesterday. And joining me today is an extremely prolific and excellent fantasy author. It is Emma L. Adams. Emma, how are you doing?
I'm good, thank you. Thanks for having me here.
Oh, it's great to meet you and it's great to chat to you. I was looking through your website earlier today and I was like, how many books has Emma written? This is amazing. Um, how long have you been writing fantasy, Emma?
I've been publishing since 2013 now. In terms of writing, I've been writing since I was a teenager. Luckily, none of that got published, but
Oh,
yeah.
boo! Come on, we want teenage Emma books. That's what we
Oh
want.
no one wants that. No, I don't think. Well, I did finish. I finished two novels. I don't know what length actually counts as a novel. There was a point where, there were children's books, so I guess they can go short, but at the same time, 35,000 words or something. I thought that was a lot at the time when I was 14, but
Yeah, that's amazing. I mean, if
well,
you're
yeah,
14 and you're writing 35,000 words, you're destined to be a novel writer, right?
honestly, like that is basically all I wanted to do, like to the point of like obsession, which explains how it ended up like this.
So in your journey from publishing since 2013 to now, have you seen lots of changes in the publishing space?
Oh yeah, definitely. I started out small press and then I went indie in 2015. And even then, it's been 9 years and we've had so many changes. I've changed like the way that I sell stuff. Like I used to be Amazon exclusive. Now I sell on my website and I sell like everywhere else as well. So I completely reset that a couple of years ago. The industry has changed a ton. Like I don't think it stays consistent from one year to the next, let alone I was like, well, it's been 9 years, but it's been about 90 years in publishing timeline. And like if I struggle, if anyone asks me for advice on how to start publishing now, I'm like, yeah, I think my advice is like several years out of date. Although having said that, I did only move into epic fantasy in 2022. So that was kind of a reboot. Like I had a readership, but it was for more urban fantasy stuff. So I did hit the reset button then. So I did have to relearn some stuff, but then each genre is slightly different as well. So yeah, and then I switched, like, because I started out Kindle Unlimited, Amazon exclusive, and then I switched to Kickstarter for my second epic fantasy series, and then selling like direct and stuff after that. So I couldn't even stay consistent from one series to the next, but I kind of, yeah, I think it's one of those things where you're just always learning something. Like it's never dull. It's probably why I haven't got bored with it in like 11 years, because it doesn't stay consistent. It's just in a constant state of like flux. And like if you move between genres, subgenres, like I can't seem to consistently stay in one subgenre for longer than, I think I did urban fantasy mostly exclusively for about 5 years, and now I'm in epic fantasy, and I've been there for like 3 years now. So it's going to be something else next, but it's always fantasy. That's the uniting thing.
Yeah, it'll be cozy next. You'll do like a good 2 years of cozy, and then you'll go super grimdark. That's the way to do it. It's like,
Oh yeah, just to make marketing difficult. Although to be fair, my first indie published series is about five subgenres crammed into one, which I call it. It's closer to urban fantasy than any other subgenre, but that's not really like in terms of the branding, I went down that route. But it's very difficult to market. It's modern Earth, but there's a multiverse and some sci-fi and some high fantasy elements, and then I wonder like what category to put it in, and it's a bit difficult. So I went through a phase of trying not to do that, or at least not to make it so obvious that I was doing that, that it kind of hindered the ability to actually sell the books. But I don't know. I like mixing genres though, so yeah.
yeah, those are my favorite kind of books where you can't
I,
pin them down as to what they are.
yeah.
They're fantastic, and anything with like multiverse sci-fi elements, I'm all in. So yeah, I feel like I need to go back and read your stuff right from the beginning to like it's all the way through. It'd be great.
I
And
started in YA fantasy, urban fantasy, contemporary fantasy ish, but that was the small press series, and that one Yeah, that was, again, I reset when I went indie because I switched from YA to adult, and I also republished that series when I got the rights back. So I'm always like, which is your first series? I'm like, it depends which, which date you go by. It's a bit complicated.
Yeah, you have two firsts. That's amazing.
Yeah.
It's like, yeah,
And then
you
I've
can
got a
pick
new
two.
one every time I start a new genre. It's like rebooting again.
Yeah, you're just, but I love that approach of like not settling into a niche, but just constantly learning and growing and that kind of thing. Have you found that it's helped your writing?
Oh yeah, I think like it's necessary for like my just my like creative inspiration to not settle and to always kind of explore in my reading and also in my writing as well. Like I always have, well, I have lots of ideas. I don't necessarily turn all of them into books, but I find that a lot of the time it's kind of hard for me to stay interested in writing something too similar to what, at least what I just wrote. Like sometimes if I leave a gap, but I found that I got stuck when I wrote too much, like in a similar subgenre, and even then, then they weren't that similar, but they were similar enough that the novelty factor kind of. So I almost felt like I had to go to the opposite extreme when I completely switched subgenres for my next series. So that's why I ended up in epic fantasy, and then my second epic fantasy series is a completely different tone to the first one. So even though it's the same genre, it's, well, we've gone from like almost high fantasy kind of adventure with more of a kind of light tone. There's still some dark stuff in there. And then we've got Death Disciple, which is like dark, epic, like war and murder and war dragons and monsters and stuff. So yeah.
Perfect. But you sold me on War Dragons. That is like that's amazing. So but Death Disciple, that's your most recent series, and you've got the latest addition to that is book 3, isn't it? Which will be out around about a similar sort of time to the event. So
Yes,
yeah.
I have the hardback. So I launched this on Kickstarter first, which is why I have a copy here. I did the Kickstarter in June, and then it launches on my web store a couple of weeks before the retail launch. So that'll be the week of the event, and then a couple of weeks after that, it should go up on retailers like Amazon, Barnes and Noble, and all the rest of it. And this is the first series that I did hardcovers, so this is incredibly shiny. I'm completely obsessed with this. Got like under the jacket artwork and stuff,
Wow.
dragon claws and stuff. That was 100% the, well, not the whole Kickstarter motivation, but a lot of it was I want to do hardbacks. I want a book that you can knock someone out with. My books aren't that long. These are longer than anything that I've written before. But for me, that's not, you know, it's not a door stopper, but we're getting there. When you put all
Hey,
3 of them together.
exactly. When you do the whole trilogy, you've got a weapon, it's like that's amazing. Tell me a little bit about sort of because if this is your first hardback that you've ever had, what was it like holding like the first one in your hands, and the first time you get to hold a hardback of yours? What was that feeling like compared to like the paperbacks and the ebooks and things?
It was great. I think the thing with Kickstarter, and the reason I wanted to launch that way, is because Kickstarter is very print focused. Whereas I find that if you're selling on Amazon and stuff, a lot of it, especially like epic fantasy readers, tend to read in print more than urban fantasy readers, I've noticed. So I felt like I was kind of having to shift the emphasis, which is great because you get like a physical book. So that's why I wanted to do the hardback as like the selling point thing. And then I also like added like stretch goals. So I got like a map, hand-drawn illustration, and like some like chapter header images and stuff like that. So I added like this artwork and stuff, and it was just great to like have this. Like I've obviously I tend to collect at least one copy of all my books in like paperback, but the hardback is, there's something special about it. Like it's very, it's hefty. It just looks very well. To be fair, my cover artist is mostly responsible for how striking the artwork is. Like I can't claim credit for that. I'm not a designer, but it definitely helps. But I saw it up close, and it is just so much more striking when you've got it in front of you, and it's like on a hardback. And I got like this. Got the first book here. So this art, which is striking enough on an ebook, but I feel like the computer screen doesn't do justice to it. And then I got this. I
Yeah.
got my artist, and it's a simple image, but it just pops and like. Grab one of my foil bookmarks. I got bookmarks for my last Kickstarter to go with the hardbacks, and I'm completely obsessed with them as well because I was like, I'm just going to go completely over the top here and get them in foil.
Don't you think that this is
because
part
I've
of
never had a foil bookmark before, and
But don't you think this is part of the joy of being an indie author? The fact that you are in total control of what you're putting out and you can go as big or as small as you like, right? And it's like the fact you've gone big and you just loved it. I can just see on your face. You're just like so excited. It's the best.
Well, now I'm just thinking, what am I going to do next? I mean, next book is so it's actually a 4-book series. It was meant to be a trilogy, and then things happened as they tend to do in epic fantasy. I got to the end of the first book and I realized this is not a trilogy. And somehow I've not written a 4-book series before. So like this is my first. I was like, you know what? I'm going to make this a quartet. I hope it doesn't expand any longer. I'm starting the 4th book next. We shall see. I've got an outline. I mean, we'll see if the characters behave themselves. It might end up sprawling a bit, but I think usually I'm right about how long it is within 1 or 2 books. I think this one, I don't know how it happened. It was only when I got to the end of the first book that I realized that, this story, it is beyond the scope of a trilogy, and it's not even a case of having to split one book in 2. It's literally that there's more story here. Like there's all these plot threads, there's these characters. So that means that one's next, the 4th book. After that, I have to see, but that means I get another go with the Kickstarter and trying out different things with each one. And indie, like the Kickstarter thing, I'd had my eye on that for a year or so before I actually did it, but I just realized, I can do that. I'm indie. I can do Kickstarter. I can decide, like, within reason. Like I was quite risk averse when it came to the finances of it, so I wasn't going to say, oh, I'm going to have like 10 illustrations and stuff, like, because it just, like, the odds of it paying those back, because my readers had never been on Kickstarter before, and I was like, I don't think I've got that many friends and family who are going to take pity on me. But freedom, absolutely.
Yeah, it's the best, isn't it? And the thing with Kickstarter is that I think I see a lot of people sort of doing Kickstarters and things, but a lot of the ones that are for the writers, usually like stretch goals and things, it's a chance to just do something creative again, isn't it? So it's like, did you find that going through that process, it was kind of exercising your creative muscles in a slightly different way?
I probably spent longer preparing for the Kickstarter than promoting during the Kickstarter, and it took over my life during the Kickstarter. So the extent, I mean, the number of times I redrafted like my project page, like it went through so many iterations, and I kept moving things around and like just deciding like what to offer on like the tiers and stuff. And then with the stretch goals, it's almost something that you have to decide as you go along, because you don't necessarily know up front how it's going to fund. And it's taken me by surprise every single time. So I think I didn't, like with the first one, I didn't know because I'd never done it before. The second one was the first one, but slightly better. And then the third one, just it did a lot better, but it like hit the stretch goals really early, and I was like, oh wait, I need to think of another one. And that's how I ended up with the bookmarks, which was a good idea. But I already had the idea. It was just I didn't necessarily know the timing of it. So, and that's why I always think I'm going to get other stuff done when I'm running a Kickstarter, and I just don't, because it is very consuming. Not just the sharing it, but the having to adapt the kind of stretch goals, and like I need to add this on and adapt this here, and like add updates and kind of let the backers know what's going on and stuff like that. And then I was ordering although my proof copies didn't show up until afterwards. I didn't expect. I think they showed up just as I was leaving for Worldcon, which is quite funny. Because during the actual Kickstarter, I found with the first book, I was a bit more organized because I realized I don't have anything to show off here. So I tried to make sure I got the proofs in like early. Whereas with this one, it hadn't gone through proofing yet. So I didn't have the proof copies, but I was like, I've got the first 2 books. This is what it's going to look like. It's a bit easier when you got proof of what the final product looks like. Because with the first one, I was like, trust me, it's going to be amazing. I hope I've not done this before, but we're being optimistic. I've not, but printer's fine. It's just, I was like, I don't know how this is going to work. I've not tested it, but it was very much a please trust me, and I'm going to trust that the thing is going to come out in the right, like the way that I wanted it to. But yeah, by the third one, and then it took me by surprise by the unpredictability of it. But at least at that point, you kind of get used to, okay, so this is how it works. We've got some control over it.
Yeah, that's awesome. So, for anybody who's going to be at the event who is intrigued by the mystique of Kickstarter and has never done one, I guess that you're the perfect person for them to come and approach and say, "Hey, Emma, how do I do a Kickstarter? How do I get this book out into the world?" Because, like, you've got so much experience now, having done 3 successful ones. That's pretty good going, Emma. That's amazing.
Yeah, I mean, I still feel like a beginner, but yeah, no, it is something that you learn as you go. So, like self-publishing, actually, like everything in publishing is very much I can explain some things, but then you just don't know. Like my first self-publishing experience is just mistake after mistake after mistake, and yeah,
And then you learn, and then you
yeah,
grow, and then you get better. It's all a process, right? You said that these first things came just before Worldcon. How
yeah.
was your Worldcon?
It was great, yeah. So I'm looking forward to this event because it's going to be a lot more low key. Like Worldcon was a lot, and I didn't sign up to any panels or anything there precisely because I knew I was going to be completely overwhelmed with it all. Because it's like 5 days. It's like up in Glasgow, so it's about 4.5 hours ish on the train for me. So it took like a good half day to get there and then get back, and it's just intense. Like the number of people who I knew were there, but I never saw, like from Twitter and like from the internet and stuff. It was very bizarre. I was like, I'm looking for these people. I think I know what they look like online, but the crowds. I swear I spent half the time like walking in circles around like the dealer's room, like looking at all the books. And I came home with all these books, and I was like, how am I gonna get this lot on the train? Like, it became like I had to pile them on my feet. Like, it was a lot.
Yeah.
Um,
We
but no
probably passed each
unintentional.
other in the dealer's hall without even realizing it that
Probably
many
we,
times.
yeah. It's so much. Like I just walked in there on the first day and I was like, whoa. I mean, these are my people. There's also a lot of people. Introvert, first big event like this, first Worldcon, first time in Glasgow as well. But yeah, no, it was amazing. But I'm glad I didn't like sign up. I mean, I watched panels and stuff, but I didn't like sign up to anything. I was like, I'm really glad that I'm doing this small event as like my first like in-person panel because that's going to be a bit more manageable and like I'm not going to be spending the whole time like wandering around like spaced out like so many people, so many books.
Yeah, and I feel like with the panels and everything at Worldcon, there were so many happening all at the same
Oh yeah.
time and everything like that. You would struggle to know which one to go to in the best, nicest way. But
Oh yeah,
with this
definitely.
smaller event, it's like you're not going to miss panels because everything is all very intimate. So it's not a case where you feel like you're missing anything or you have to catch things up later, and you can just enjoy it for the day, right?
Yeah, definitely. Because I noticed that about Worldcon when they put the schedule up, I was like, oh wow, there's 4 things happening at the same time that I want to go to. And then sometimes it became a case of like whether there's room like in the room, because sometimes the panel was full, and then it's like, well, that's my mind made up. Then that makes the decisiveness easier. But then sometimes it was just I had to decide like what I felt like doing on that day, or whether I was doing something else at that time or something. It was hard. I mean, I've caught up on stuff like on the at least they've got some of them up online afterwards that you can catch up on because I would never have made it to one of them live. Like I think I would have had to have been in 4 places at once. I'm pretty sure even at a science fiction event that this much.
Yeah, we need Emma clones to get the full
Yeah,
Worldcon experience. But yeah,
yeah. I mean, it was great. Yeah. And I was just completely wiped out for like a week. I feel like it took me 2 weeks to just recover from that. So I think a small like day long event and without as many people in like a smaller venue is going to be a bit more manageable. And I just think it'll be more laid back and fun because yeah, Worldcon it was exhausting.
yeah, it was full on with 5 days. But the event in Shrewsbury, it's just that one day. It's a very small event comparatively, and it's just gonna have that lovely intimate atmosphere where everybody can just chat and chill out. And the fact there's a cafe there, it's just that to me is just it's great. It's good. They'll be serving great hot chocolate, teas, coffees. What more could you want, right?
Oh yeah, definitely. I mean, a gaming themed cafe. I don't think I've ever been to one of those before. I am very much a fan of the fact that that is a thing. And yeah, I imagine that'll just like the setting be more kind of like smaller and like yeah, um more of like a kind of like relaxed sort of atmosphere rather than like massive hall and
Yeah, yeah.
yeah.
What's the panel that you're going to be on?
Um, it's on like magic systems and lore and world building and stuff like that, which is very cool because I just love world building. It's like my favorite part of fantasy writing. That's why I just can't step away from the genre. Everything I write ends up in that category, and magic stuff specifically. So it's like, well, that's a topic that I can talk about. So that's good for my like first in-person kind of panel event.
Yeah, that's amazing. So, with world building, what do you think the appeal is specifically for you? Why is that the thing that, like, what are you drawn towards when it comes to building worlds?
I don't know. I like making stuff up, and I like exploring things and thinking like, what if this happens? And then I just kind of think through like what would happen. The whole of everything would like change. And I mean, I've not published any sci-fi yet. It's something that I'd like to do at some point. So there's that element as well. But fantasy specifically because, I mean, I love dragons. Most of my books have some form of dragons in them. And like mythical creatures and stuff, like what would happen if these actually were a thing, like what would the implications be for war dragons and such. And just I just like, yeah, I enjoy coming up with like these like made up like societies and just places that are just so removed from like reality. They're not necessarily nice places to live for my characters, that tends to be a thing, but they're not here, you know. Although I do urban fantasy as well, but even that is quite removed from reality. It's almost alternate history, or like post magical apocalypse. One of them is like that sort of thing. It's not. It's yeah. It's and then the appeal is like the kind of magical hidden under the everyday. But then with fantasy, you get a whole new world. So I like both really. I like imagining there's magic stuff here, but sometimes I just want to go to a world where it's just dragons.
Yeah, of course. Yeah, I feel like with dragons, it instantly makes it. It's like the fantasy equivalent of space for sci-fi. Like if you pitch something, like I want to tell like this kind of story with dragons, or it's like I want to tell this kind of story in space. It's kind of like the equivalent, right? The with dragons. It's
Oh yeah.
yeah.
And now I'm thinking about space dragons because that's where my brain goes. I mean,
Yes, space dragons. That's the next one,
honestly,
Emma.
if I do sci-fi, it'll probably involve space dragons. I can kind of see that being a thing.
Yes.
It's just I don't like have a concept yet. I say that, but as soon as I say I don't, my creative brain will probably like kicking in the background and like deposit a whole series that I don't have time to write in the back of
Exactly.
my head.
Now we've got a civil war between planets of space dragons. It's like it's
I
happening,
mean, yeah,
Yeah.
it
I
can happen.
feel like this is one of the best things about going to be at the event when you've got loads of writers together and you just chat. We're all going to come away with notebooks full of ideas, right? It's going to be like, what are we going to work on next? Oh yeah, I remember being at the Spotlight event and having this conversation, and that was that gave me a great idea for this, that, and the other. Did you come away from Worldcon with like loads of ideas?
Um, you know, I don't. I'm not sure whether did I write them down somewhere else and forget. I didn't come up with like a concrete concept, but I think it's because at those events I can't think clearly enough to like engage. So there's probably something lurking back there that's going to surface at some point. But I find that with me, I think of stuff, and if it doesn't go down on paper right away, it gets lost in the void somewhere, and then it will come back later sometimes.
Yeah.
But I don't think I wrote anything down and specifically. I'm gonna remember something when I come off this call. I can tell. Like there's something in there. There's always something in there. It just doesn't necessarily like show itself when I need it to.
So, are you going to be taking a notebook to the Spotlight event?
Yeah, I always have a notebook on me because because I have a memory like a sieve. Like if it doesn't get written down, it vanishes into the void somewhere.
Yeah, that's it. And I feel like that's like the true mark of a writer, right? It's like always have a pen, always have a notebook. That makes you a writer instantly, right? So I think that's cool.
Oh, definitely, yeah. Or multiple notebooks. Depending on,
Every
yeah.
pocket has a
I was just
notebook. It's
thinking,
like,
yeah, no, I've only got the one notebook that I carry everywhere. But yeah, actually, you know, I haven't looked in that notebook since I got, but maybe that's why I've forgotten. Okay. This is going to be a rabbit hole, I can tell. What was I thinking when I was like wandering dazed around the dealer's hall, and then it like flew out my head afterwards because I got distracted because I bought 7 books and then had to put them in a suitcase.
Yeah, I feel like every time I interact with a creative, something creative happens, and that's going to be it. I can't wait, because when you look at all of the people that are going to be attending the Spotlight event, it's going to be such a hubbub of creativity. So for anybody who is watching this and wants to come and interact and meet me and Emma and have a chat about, you know, ideas and spitball off of us, just go for it, because it sounds, Emma, like your brain works very similarly to mine in that it's kind of like, it's more like an idea spewing machine than an idea factory. It's like it just spews ideas.
Yeah, a lot of the ideas are just completely impractical for like any, and like most of them are attached to a book. Like I feel like a very small percentage kind of linger for long enough to end up in a book, and also join together with other ideas so they actually make sense.
Yeah.
It's just nonsense up there a lot of the time.
Yeah, but that's where the best thing grows. Nonsense is the best,
Oh
most
yeah.
fertile ground to plant the seed of a book. Absolutely. Yeah. So for anybody who's enjoyed our conversation or who wants to find out more about, you know, the Death Disciple saga and all of the things that is coming their way that you're going to be bringing out, how can they find you online? How can they interact with you? How can they reach you? Where are your socials?
So I'm basically on every social media site, not consistently. The best place to find me is my website. Like I'm there, emmaladams.com. So that's like, it's my website. It's also like my author store. So like all my books are on there, and like my social links are on there as well. Like I find social media is kind of scattered at the moment, so it's like a bit difficult to keep all the links up to date. But I'm there under Emma L. Adams on most places, like Twitter, Instagram, and Blue Sky, Threads, whatever the new one is. I'm technically on TikTok, but the thing is, I have a common name, so I have different usernames on all of them. So it's usually, I think Twitter, I'm EL Adams 12, and then on Instagram, I'm like Emma L Adams 2 or something. This is a problem. It makes it a bit difficult because there's like 50 other people with the same name. Not many writers with the same name, so we'll go with that. But
if people want to find you, they can, and they will.
Yeah, I'm findable. Yeah, the links are on my website. That's probably the easiest way to find all of them. They're gathered in one place. But yeah.
That's perfect. Well, it has been such a pleasure to meet you. I can't wait to see you in person in Shrewsbury on the 29th. And all of the best with this, you know, getting everything prepped for this next big launch and this next big release. It's so exciting. And yeah, really, real pleasure to meet you, Emma, and to have a chat with you today.
You too. Thank you. Thanks for having me.
See you on the 29th.
Bye.